All right, what's going on, everyone? It is January 20th, 2021. We've had a breakout to all-time new highs in the SPY, QQQ, and IWM is just buffering right above at all-time highs. It was a really strong day. Finally had to wake up with FANG, and it's the start of earnings season. Thus far, we've had some really great earnings and some positive news with respect to tech stocks. So when we're starting this off, we always just got to tell everyone this isn't investment advice. We're not investment advisors. We don't know what we're talking about. We're just out here just chatting. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So if we take a look at the SPY, so what we had was for the last week and a half approximately, we had a tight trading range from 381 down to about 376. On Friday of last week, it was option expiry. You had a sell-off that came down in the SPY, touched down perfectly on the 20-day simple moving average, and looked to be the potential change in trend. It looked as if perhaps we had the opportunity to go lower. However, that clearly was not the case. On Monday, the market was closed, and then on Tuesday, we drove right back into the prior trading range. So that invalidated that move lower. Clearly, it took out any potential sellers which were even thinking of existing. And then there was full capitulation and then upward movement to the top of the prior range. And then today, a breakout higher. This is clearly a sign that there's no one here who's being short the market. Any attempts are feeble, and they're quickly being bought back right up and moving further higher. So what I would say is that the trend continues to be upward. Everything now is healthy. Now we're starting to get participation of FANG. We're getting positive earnings. So the bull market and the upward trajectory looks to be continuing in progress. And I would say that overall staying long appears to be the trend. If you look at QQQ, this was hovering around the 20-day simple moving average for about the last week. And then today, now we've broken out. We've come over all-time highs, and we have participation of FANG. So this overall looks really good. And as we'll talk about FANG and Netflix, their earnings, which they had yesterday, that's really helped propel the market. There also was some news on some reversion of the immigration ban. And this was, if you read on TheVerge.com, deemed to be positive for Google, with the Google CEO coming out and acknowledging this as being positive for his employees. This will also be positive for Apple, Facebook, any of these tech companies who rely on a significant contingency of workers who are coming from other countries. This also likely was a catalyst for this big, strong move in FANG. This also is important because we've been getting all-time highs in the SPY and the IWM. QQQ was getting it as well up to this point, but it was very hesitant. The NASDAQ was certainly appearing to be lagging with that respect because half of their market share, being FANG, was struggling. They've been in this tight consolidating range. You had the banks which were carrying the market, you had financials, you had energy, you had all of these other industries that were bringing the market higher, but you were not getting the participation of what is the largest sector of all of these markets. Now we're starting to get that, and this is now excellent because it's a rotation play. The financials were strong, money was going into them and not into FANG. Now the financials are taking a breather, they're by no means weak, and what's happening is that money is rotating out of the financials and into the classic FANG stocks. So this is just a push-pull in the market that you want to see the money going back and forth. At least the money is still there. It's still being invested and it's being put into stocks. It's not being sold. It's not being kept on the sidelines. The Russell, it's slowed down its pace of attack. It's not continuing to make these rapid, significant moves higher. And hopefully it'll just continue to go sideways here and really start to digest this strong upward move for the past several months and give time for these moving averages to catch up to them. So let's go ahead and jump right in here with FANG. And so let's look at Facebook. So Facebook, this had a great trade if anyone was in this last week. it came down to this prior swing low of about 243, which coincided with just at the 200-day simple moving average. You had Facebook look below and then ultimately come back over the 200-day simple moving average, and it's been along ever since, and it's just going higher. It's now above its 20, and it's in between the 20 and the 50. Facebook here has come back into this range. So what I would say is that with this large area of consolidation, when you leave an area of a trading range and then come back into it, then your first target should be looking at the opposite end of that range. So with Facebook due to set earnings out here in the near future, I would say that targeting back to 305 with Facebook is a legitimate option. And my personal thought is that FANG stocks in general are going to have blowout earnings. I've been saying this here for a few videos. They're just going to blow out earnings this quarter. And all of these I feel are going to really have to get back up to all-time highs. Apple, if we take a look at this, this is another one that's just been going sideways here for the last few weeks. It's still above this downtrend, and now it's perked up and it's gone above its 20-day simple moving average. So Apple is due to report earnings next week. If this can stay strong, reclaim back up to its prior all-time highs of 138, this looks like it's going to be a nice clean move to push higher. I really feel bullish on Apple. I feel like they're going to be selling a tremendous number of record laptops, record not PCs, but components with respect to computers. They've come out with some really nice M1 chips. Their headphones that they came out with, even though they're tremendously overpriced, they're still being bought up and they're out of stock for several months. Their services with the App Store is setting record numbers. The iPhone 12, they have innumerous models that are likely going to have record selling numbers as well. So this to me looks as if that once we see Apple get back up to 138, which it looks like it wants to do, even potentially before earnings, then looking at that as breaking above that and going higher is what I would say looks to be the next move for Apple. How could you look at potentially playing this? I would say really if you wanted to do anything, looking at it here for the short term into the end of the week, although there's just 2 more days left, I don't know that I would be really looking into anything. And next week being earnings, you're likely going to have a push into earnings. So if you want to play anything into earnings, I would say look to target that 138, possibly with a 130, 135 call vertical for next week. Let's take a look at how much that's marking. So that's about $2.20. So that's something that you could be looking at doing. Now, the issue here is that these options are going to maintain a high implied volatility because of the earnings, but really looking to capture any sort of move up into this prior all-time high prior to earnings, I think would be worthwhile. Netflix, this was just a beast. It had insane earnings last night. Significant volume was exchanged today. This was a huge move higher. It's broken out above its prior all-time highs, which were set at 575. So Netflix, these have just been sleeping giants, okay? Netflix has had, going back to July of last year, it's just been going sideways in this range. Now it's broken out of that trading range. And to me, this just looks really strong. I would say this is likely setting itself up for another leg higher. Look at this going back on the weekly. We've reclaimed all of this. This is a very bullish engulfing candle that's really taken out anyone who is short in this area. So what I would say looking at Netflix is that this may be one that actually is going to go quite a bit higher. Now, if you look back historically, going back on the monthly, when Netflix goes, when it breaks out of a prior trading range, it starts to really accelerate, and stepwise it's going to be going higher. Take a look at this back here, back in October of 2019 through 2020. So if we get any sort of a move like that, then Netflix has a lot of room to potentially run. Talking about sleeping giants, let's take a look at Amazon. So Amazon, this has been one that it's just been impossible to get a real feel for. It's been looking weak, right? It looks as if on this first initial trend line here, and then this secondary trend line here, it wanted to potentially go lower, tag this 2950 prior to the 200-day simple moving average. But with all the positive news, with all of the great earnings that Netflix has had, with the market moving to all-time highs, seeing other elements of FANG that are moving forward. This is a huge move higher with Amazon. It's taken out now its 20 and 50-day simple moving average. It's closed above that. What really we need to be looking at here is about 33.50. Okay, so as a first target, Amazon is due to report their earnings not next week, but the following week. So this is likely going to continue to push higher. I would have as a first target 33.50 for Amazon to be reaching. So you could be looking at that and seeing what could you do with next week. Let's take a look. Take a look at the chain. You could be looking at 3,300, 33.50. That's $15 for a potential $35 profit. And I feel that is just the initial next target that we're going to have. Now, likely what may end up happening is that we could come up to that area and then perhaps just go sideways. That would be extremely bullish. If we get up to 33.50 and pause, then that just, I would say, just gives us the impetus to potentially break out and move even higher. Or this may just have its legs and this is day one of its breakout and it really just starts going. So if we reclaim 33.50, that's a long and stay long in Amazon. Microsoft, this one also had a beautiful candle today. It was up $7.90, closed above its 20-day, 50-day simple moving average. It's due to report earnings soon as well. So really what I would say here is that targeting 232 up into earnings would be a positive catalyst. So Tesla, this is really interesting. So Tesla has been going sideways here for a couple of weeks now, right around $850. I would say that with Tesla, the next move should be to wait and see what it is that's going to happen. Now, that's easy to say, but what I would say currently what's happening is that with this chopping around in this 850 range, this is just draining, okay? Any premium that anyone may have in calls or puts, it's just being drained out. So wait for this to declare itself with what it's going to do. And it's due to report earnings here in the next couple of weeks. And no one here is looking to get short this. And it'll be interesting to see what they're going to report. But if this stays here and consolidates here at its prior all-time highs, I would say that's also potentially setting itself up for another move higher to break out of that and potentially target 1,000. So the chip stocks, NVIDIA, this has now finally had a close here, again, over its 20 and 50-day simple moving average. This to me looks like another sleeping giant, just like Netflix has been. This isn't due to report its earnings until mid-February, but if you take a look at this chart, it's exactly like Netflix. It's just been going sideways in range. What has NVIDIA been doing while this has been going sideways? They've been making the best graphics cards. They have them priced very highly. They're completely out of stock everywhere. They have a tremendous future ahead of them. If Bitcoin mining is back in vogue and people are going to need video cards, that's going to increase demand. To me, this looks like it's just setting itself up for another break above its prior all-time highs of 590. And what I would say is that if you look at this range, it's from about 460 to 590, so 130 points is the current trading range that it's been in. You can double that. So if we break above 600, I would say another 130 points, somewhere around 730, 750, could ultimately be a target for NVIDIA. So if you look at AMD has been struggling. So this is the counterpart to what you would say NVIDIA is starting to perk up, but AMD still looks strong. Now, looking at AMD tomorrow afternoon is going to be really interesting. So Intel is going to report earnings, and AMD has sold off 10% right after the news that came out that the Intel CEO was stepping down and he was going to be replaced by the CEO of VMware. So this was deemed to be a positive for Intel and a negative for AMD. Again, I personally don't feel as if Intel is going to revert back to what it was before. AMD is here to stay. Again, this is a quality product that is in every machine now that's being sold. People want an AMD processor. Their graphics cards are competing with the NVIDIA graphics cards. All of the new gaming systems, they all have AMD components within it. The demand for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X is off the charts. So this to me looks long-term like it's going to be a positive. Now, what I would say is that tomorrow afternoon, we'll really get a good picture of this and seeing. So if Intel doesn't have solid earnings, it may actually be an inverted play on AMD. So what we may end up seeing is that AMD climbs if Intel has a poor earnings. So what I could see as a potential lotto would be to look at this Friday. And let's see how AMD looks. Yeah, so here they're pricing out zero possibility essentially of AMD on Friday within 2 days getting above back to its prior all-time highs. So let's say if you wanted to get a 95 100 call vertical, that's 9 cents, okay? So for 9 cents, you could pick up a lotto that could potentially net you $3 or $4. I don't think that's a bad thought. Let's take a look at 93. All right, 93 100 call vertical is 21 cents, okay? So if this is a play on, you have the market strong, you have FANG, which is strong, Intel has earnings tomorrow afternoon. If you believe that AMD is oversold on just news alone, then this could potentially go higher. Let's take a look at Google. This is a monster, okay? Google, what this had was this downtrend. It looked above this downtrend and got to 1800 and then pulled right back below. Once it broke back above that downtrend and reclaimed 1750, it took out its 20, it took out its 50-day simple moving average, and it's been gone ever since. It's had a huge move, gap, and a huge candle as well, going above its prior all-time highs. Google, I feel, is a very positive company with respect to earnings here upcoming. So I don't think that there's anything here whatsoever to be looking short. Look at this on the weekly. This is a huge candle here that's taken that out, and that looks like it could be a really strong signal. So what could we be looking at as a potential target? Let's look here on this weekly. We had a trading range for going back until November of 1700 to 1800. Now, what you would say is that, or 1850. So that's about 150 points. So from 1850 to another 150, that's going to get you up to 2000. So I would say that 2000 is a potential target that I would have for Google. Let's take a look at what it would be going into next week. If you wanted to target 2000 with a call butterfly, if you bought the 1900, you sold the 2000, and then you bought the 2100, that's $17 for about an $83 potential profit. Obviously, you're not going for $83, but to me, I think extending this range and getting up to 2000, especially with the big boys having earnings next week, is a strong possibility. Let's take a look at another one that I feel looks really good is Adobe. Okay, now Adobe, this is a solid company. They have endless subscriptions. Everyone's uploading videos on YouTube's content creation. Everyone's paying monthly for this. So it's a cash cow. They're making a lot of money. So what you can see here, it doesn't look that strong right now in that it's below its 20, but it is staying above its 50. And now we've gained a little bit of traction here. If we see 480 reclaimed, then I think that a target for Adobe would then be 505. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on 480 on Adobe. If it reclaims that, back to 505. Let's take a look at what else we have here on the list. BABA, this came out with some positive news with Jack Ma. He has resurfaced, and now we've had a gap higher with BABA. You see now we've reclaimed the 20 and the 50-day simple moving average. This chart, though, this is just kind of funky. So you have gap down, gap up. There's a lot of gaps in here. Nothing here that I would say I would be looking at trading, because anything that is gapping up and down quite erratically, to me, just doesn't seem as if it's something you can get a clear trend on. How about some of the high flyers that we commonly talk about? FUBO. FUBO still looks weak. Okay, it's gotten support here at its 50-day simple moving average. Couldn't close above the 20, and now it's coming back down here to its 50. So this looks like in this area is where it just wants to go sideways. I would be staying away from that. IPOE, this has looked really strong here in the past week. So this is SoFi. If you take a look at this, we had a nice clean move here on Tuesday. We broke above its prior highs of $22, and we've continued to go higher to about $24.50 as a high. And if you take a look, very technical, okay, pullback right to the prior breakout point. and then it's bounced. So what I would say is we just want to keep an eye on SoFi to see that it's going to stay above 22 and you stay long. JMIA, this is one which we've really loved. This, I would say we continue to say with JMIA, we're looking at, as long as it's staying above the 20, getting back to 50 is our first target. So for this, really aggressive sellers could be selling 40 puts for next month, but I feel like selling 33 puts for next month. And let's see what those are pricing out. Those are about $1.16 in credit. So you would be okay, I feel, being an owner of JMIA at $33, and you would collect the $1 of credit from selling those puts. Corsair, this is the foil for Logitech. This is a little bit concerning, okay? We've had this downtrend, we've gone above it, and now we've closed below it. We've also closed now below the 20 and the 50-day simple moving average. Corsair, what we're going to have to keep an eye on is whether or not we get below 32, and we'll put an alert there. If we get below 32, then that's concerning that we may be actually breaking down out of this range. SKLZ, so this has been a hot item here, especially with Kathy Woods from ARC purchasing this on a regular basis here in the past couple of weeks. This is just, to me, the chart doesn't look very clean. This looks like a lot of momentum. There's a lot of short-term buyers, it looks like, who are buying this and then selling it off in the close. They're buying this, selling it off in the close. You're not getting a nice clean candle like this one here back on 12/17. You have a lot of these that have a big long wick here at the top, and even today, a long wick at the top. So to me, that doesn't look as if it's something I would be wanting to play. NEO looked like it was doing a nice job of here maintaining above this prior breakout point of 57, and it may just want to consolidate. Here it goes sideways. If you're overall bullish on NEO, I would still be looking at selling puts. 49 is what I would be looking at. Really aggressive traders could be looking at 53, selling puts. GameStop, you guys all know about GameStop. This has had a heroic move here in the past couple of weeks, and what it looks like it's wanting to do now is just consolidate here in this 39 area. I think overall this is still bullish. It's likely just going to have a trading range in here before its next leg higher. So staying long GameStop, if you have a good entry, I think is worthwhile. I don't know that I would be looking at this with options. Let's take a look. Yeah, you could see the IV is incredibly pumped up. You have 230%, 220% IV here on these. So I think options is not the way to go. So SpaceX, this is something that I'm really bullish on. And what I would say is that going out into February, looking at this to at least get to 35, if not getting back to its prior all-time highs of 42, to me, I feel is a decent possibility. There have been some positive news, positive catalysts, as well as there have been purchases of February calls at the 42 strike and in size. So what I've been looking at is that for SPCE, SpaceX, looking at out into February, getting calls. So one real nice way to do that would be to be looking at February and looking at the 30, 40, 50 call butterfly. So if you buy the 30 call, you sell 2 of the 40 call, and then you buy the 50 call. So that's about $2 for a potential $8 in credit. Again, like I said, we're never looking to get all of that, but capturing a move here above this first 35.76 target, and then targeting back towards its prior all-time highs. And like I said, there has been quite a bit of call buying in size going out into February. DraftKings, so we've seen with the betting stocks, these have been really positive with a lot of news out there that gambling is going to be a big part of revenue for a lot of states, and it's likely going to get legalized in many more states here in the future. This right now is just choppy. You can see it here in range. I would put down as a target about 56.70. If we can get above 56.70, then you look to target back to 64. So that's really what I've got for you guys here today, and I hope you guys have a good evening.